Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Personal Growth Talks podcast. I'm your host, Jason, and I'm so excited to have you here with us today. Whether you're just starting your English journey or looking to improve your skills, we've got a fantastic topic for you. How to build your English brain. But I'm not doing this alone. Joining me today is my amazing co-host, Anna. Hi, Anna. How are you?
Hi, Jason. I'm doing great, and I'm so happy to be here. Hi, everyone. It's always a pleasure to share tips and tricks to help you grow and become more confident with your English.
Absolutely, Anna. Now, for those of you wondering, what do we mean by building your English brain? Well, think of it as training your mind to think, understand, and even dream in English. Sounds exciting, right?
It really is, Jason. And trust me, it's not as hard as it might sound. We're here to make it simple and fun for you.
Exactly. So, grab a notebook or just sit back, relax, and let's talk about how you can build your English brain step by step. Are you ready, Anna?
I'm ready, Jason. Let's get started.
All right, Anna. Let's dive right in. Before we get into the steps, let's first explain what we mean by building your English brain. It might sound a little strange to some of our listeners.
That's true, Jason. It does sound a bit unusual at first. But building your English brain simply means training yourself to think and process information in English, just like you do in your native language.
That's a great way to put it. So, instead of translating everything in your head, you start understanding and responding directly in English. Right?
Exactly. For example, if you see a cup of coffee, your first thought shouldn't be translating it from your language to coffee. Instead, you should think, oh, that's coffee, in English.
Ah, I see. So, it's about creating a direct connection between English words and your thoughts. But why is this so important for language learners, Anna?
Well, Jason, when you think in English, it makes communication much faster and smoother. You don't have to stop and translate everything, which can slow you down. Plus, it helps you feel more natural and confident when speaking.
That's true. And I imagine it's also really helpful for understanding native speakers in real conversations.
Absolutely. Native speakers don't pause for you to translate in your head. When your brain starts working in English, you'll catch on faster and feel less stressed in conversations.
I like that. So, building your English brain is really about making English a natural part of your daily thinking, right?
You got it, Jason. It's like exercising your brain. The more you practice, the stronger your English brain becomes.
Perfect. Now that we've explained what it means, let's get into the first step for building your English brain, surrounding yourself with English. All right, Anna. Now that we've explained what building your English brain means, let's talk about the first step, surrounding yourself with English. Why is this step so important?
Great question, Jason. Surrounding yourself with English helps you get used to how the language sounds, how sentences are formed, and even how words are pronounced. It's like learning by osmosis. You absorb the language naturally without even realizing it.
That makes sense. So, what are some simple ways our listeners can start doing this in their daily lives?
There are so many fun and easy ways. For example, you can listen to English music. Find songs you enjoy and try to follow the lyrics. It's a great way to learn new words and improve your pronunciation.
I like that idea. Listening to music makes learning so much more enjoyable. What else?
Another great tip is watching English videos or TV shows with subtitles. Start with shows or videos made for beginners, or even cartoons. The subtitles can help you understand while you listen.
That's a fantastic tip, Anna. And what about podcasts? I've heard they're really helpful too.
Absolutely, Jason. Podcasts like this one are perfect for language learners. You can listen while commuting, exercising, or doing chores. Choose topics you're interested in so it feels more like fun than study time.
Great advice. Now, some listeners might feel shy about speaking English at first. Is there a way they can start practicing on their own?
Of course, one easy way is to talk to yourself in English. For example, describe what you're doing, like, I'm making coffee, or I'm walking to the store. It helps you practice forming sentences without any pressure.
I love that idea, Anna. It's such a simple and effective way to get used to thinking in English.
Exactly. The key is to make English a part of your everyday environment. The more you hear and use it, the more natural it will feel.
That's really encouraging, Anna. So, step one is clear. Surround yourself with English in ways that feel enjoyable and easy. Now, what's the next step?
Next, we'll talk about how to practice thinking in English. Let's dive in.
All right, Anna, we've covered the importance of surrounding yourself with English. Now let's talk about step two, practicing thinking in English. This sounds challenging. How can beginners start doing this?
It might sound tricky at first, Jason, but it's actually easier than you think. The goal is to slowly shift your internal thoughts from your native language to English. You don't have to be perfect. Just start small.
Small steps. I like that. Can you give us some examples of how to practice thinking in English during daily activities?
Of course. One simple way is to describe what you see or do. For example, if you're walking outside, think, I see a tree, or the sky is blue. It's like narrating your own story in your head.
That's a great idea. It sounds like a fun way to connect English words with real-life situations.
Exactly. Another tip is to plan your day in English. In the morning, think about what you need to do, like, I will go to the store, or I have a meeting at 10 a.m.
I can see how that helps you use common words and phrases naturally. What about when someone doesn't know a word in English? Should they stop?
Good question. If you don't know a word, don't stop. Use simple words or phrases to explain it. For example, if you don't know the word for refrigerator, you can think, it's the big box that keeps food cold.
Ah, so it's more about keeping the flow, even if you don't know the exact word.
Exactly, Jason. It's okay to make mistakes or use simpler language. The important thing is to keep thinking in English, even if it's not perfect.
That's really reassuring for beginners. Are there any tools or resources that can help with this?
Definitely. You can use language learning apps that encourage you to think in English with interactive exercises. Also, writing a journal in English is a great way to practice your thoughts.
I love the journal idea. Writing down your thoughts forces you to organize them in English.
Yes, and over time it becomes a habit. You'll find yourself naturally thinking in English without even realizing it.
That sounds amazing, Anna. So, step two is all about practicing to think in English, starting with simple steps and building a habit over time.
That's right, Jason. And next, we'll talk about why it's important to use simple words and sentences when you're building your English brain.
Perfect. Let's keep going. So far, we've talked about surrounding yourself with English and practicing thinking in English. Now, Anna, let's talk about why it's important to use simple words and sentences. When building your English brain,
That's such an important point, Jason. Using simple words and sentences is like laying a strong foundation for your English skills. It helps you focus on being clear and confident rather than worrying about complicated grammar or vocabulary.
that makes sense. I imagine that trying to use advanced words too early can feel overwhelming.
Exactly. Many beginners feel like they have to use big, impressive words to sound fluent. But honestly, Fluency is about communication, not complexity. Starting simple allows you to express yourself without getting stuck.
That's really encouraging. Can you give an example of how to simplify sentences for beginners?
Of course, instead of saying, I need to prepare a detailed report for tomorrow's meeting, you can start with, I need to write a report for tomorrow. It's shorter, easier, and still gets the message across.
I like that. It's about keeping things clear and manageable. Do you think this approach also helps with confidence?
Absolutely, Jason. When you use simple sentences, you're less likely to make mistakes. This builds confidence, which is so important for beginners.
And I suppose as learners get more comfortable, they can gradually add more complexity, right?
That's right. Once you're confident with simple sentences, you can naturally move on to more complex ones. But there's no rush. Take your time.
Great advice. Are there any tools or exercises to help beginners practice using simple sentences?
Yes. One fun way is to describe your day in English using only short sentences. For example, I wake up, I eat breakfast, I go to work. It's simple, but it gets you thinking and speaking in English.
That's a great exercise, Anna. It's straightforward and easy to do every day.
Another idea is to use flashcards with common phrases. Practice saying them out loud and creating your own short sentences with the words you learn.
That's really practical. So, to sum up, using simple words and sentences helps you focus on clear communication and builds confidence as you learn.
Exactly. Start small, stay consistent, and watch your skills grow.
I love it, Anna. Next up, let's talk about something that happens to all learners. Common mistakes to avoid. All right, Anna, we've covered some great steps so far. But as we all know, learning a language comes with challenges. Let's talk about something every beginner faces. Common mistakes to avoid. What do you think is one of the biggest mistakes beginners make?
Great question, Jason. One big mistake is being afraid to make mistakes. Many learners hold back because they're worried about saying the wrong thing. But mistakes are actually a part of learning.
That's so true. I've heard people say that mistakes are like little teachers. They show you what to work on.
Exactly. Instead of being afraid, embrace your mistakes. They mean you're trying, and that's a good thing.
I love that perspective. What's another common mistake you've seen?
Another mistake is trying to learn too much at once. Some learners focus on memorizing long lists of vocabulary or complicated grammar rules, but this can feel overwhelming and frustrating.
So what's a better approach?
Focus on small, practical steps. Learn words and phrases you can use right away, like greetings, common questions, or simple sentences. Build a strong base before moving on to advanced topics.
That's such good advice, Anna. Are there any mistakes related to pronunciation that beginners should watch out for?
Absolutely. A common mistake is worrying too much about having a perfect accent. While pronunciation is important, the main goal is to be understood. It's okay if your accent is different. It shows your unique background.
That's really reassuring. So, learners should aim for clarity, not perfection.
Exactly, Jason. And one more mistake I see often is relying too much on translating. Beginners sometimes try to translate every word from their native language into English, but this can slow you down and make sentences sound unnatural.
That's a good point. How can listeners avoid this?
Practice thinking in English, like we talked about earlier. Start with simple phrases and trust your instincts. Over time, you'll learn to express ideas directly in English without translating.
These are really helpful tips, Anna. So, to recap, some common mistakes to avoid are being afraid of mistakes, trying to learn too much at once, worrying about accents, and relying on translation.
That's right. And remember, it's okay to make mistakes. Learning is a journey, not a race.
That's such a positive message. All right, let's wrap things up with some final tips and encouragement for our listeners. Ready, Anna?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
We've covered a lot today, Anna. Before we wrap up, let's share some final tips and words of encouragement for our listeners. What's one key piece of advice you'd give to someone just starting to build their English brain?
Great question, Jason. My top advice is to be consistent. Learning a language is like planting a garden. You need to water it a little every day. Even 10 or 15 minutes of practice can make a big difference over time.
That's such a good analogy, Anna. It's about small, steady efforts. I'd also add, don't compare yourself to others. Everyone learns at their own pace, and it's okay to take your time.
Absolutely, Jason. Learning English is your own personal journey. Celebrate the small wins, like understanding a new word or completing a simple conversation. These moments show you're growing.
That's such an important reminder. And for those moments when progress feels slow or frustrating, what can learners do to stay motivated?
One thing that helps is setting achievable goals. For example, aim to learn 5 new words this week or have a short conversation in English with a friend. Reaching small goals gives you a sense of accomplishment.
I love that idea. Small goals are like stepping stones. They keep you moving forward.
Exactly. And don't forget to make learning fun. Watch a funny English video, play word games, or sing along to your favorite songs. When you enjoy the process, it doesn't feel like work.
That's such great advice, Anna. Fun and progress go hand in hand. Before we close, is there one last piece of encouragement you'd like to share?
Yes, Jason. To everyone listening, believe in yourself. Learning a language is a big challenge, but you're capable of amazing things. Every time you practice, you're getting closer to your goal.
Beautifully said, Anna. So remember, everyone, consistency, small goals, and having fun are the keys to success. And most importantly, don't give up. You're doing great.
That's right, Jason. Keep going, and soon you'll see how far you've come.
All right. That's it for today's episode of Personal Growth Talks podcast. Thank you so much for joining us, Anna.
Thank you, Jason. And thanks to all our listeners. Keep practicing and believing in yourselves.
Don't forget to subscribe, share this podcast with your friends, and leave us a comment about what you'd like to hear next. See you next time, and happy learning. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of Personal Growth Talks podcast. We hope you enjoyed our discussion on how to build your English brain and feel motivated to start practicing today.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, building your English brain takes time, but with consistency and small steps, you'll see incredible progress. Keep surrounding yourself with English, think in English, and use simple sentences to express yourself.
And don't forget, making mistakes is part of the process. Every time you make a mistake, you're learning and growing. So, embrace it and keep moving forward.
Absolutely, Jason. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe, share it with your friends, and leave us a comment or a review. We'd love to hear how you're building your English brain.
Thanks again for being with us today. Stay confident, keep practicing, and remember, you've got this.
We'll see you next time on Personal Growth Talks podcast. Until then, keep growing and keep learning.